Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this morning session. And today, our first speaker is Sophia Ajemba, and Dr. Case will introduce her.
Yes, I'm filling in for Dr. Falynn Turley, who is a little bit under the weather. So I told her that I would be very happy to introduce her student. Sophia is also working with Dr. Billy Hankins, and Billy can't be here either. But Falynn wanted to be sure that you knew that Sophia is a very special student, and she's a role model for all of her peers. She was an SI leader in Dr. Turley's stats courses and ended up filling that role for multiple semesters. So the students loved her. She always puts her all into everything she does, and we're looking forward to your presentation.
The COVID-19 pandemic resulted in a dramatic change in our day-to-day operations. Limitation was placed on the state, federal, and global level, such as limitation in face-to-face interaction, going out to eat, vacation. As a result, that affected the United States economy, businesses were shutting down, and unemployment was rising. With that in mind, it's comprehensive to assume that it also affected the United States tax revenue, specifically the sales tax revenue. Hello everyone, my name is Sophia Ajemba. I'm majoring in finance with a minor in computer information system, and today I'll be presenting on the COVID-19 impact on government sales tax revenue. So for my overview, I'll start off with the big picture. I'll talk about the COVID-19 impact on the overall government sales tax revenue as well as on the state level. I'll also talk about the top 10 highest and the top lowest percentage change in sales tax revenue. Finally, I'll conclude it by talking about the correlation between the COVID lockdown stringency index and the percent change in sales tax revenue. But before I move into the next slide, can we make a guess? So who thinks that the sales tax revenue increased in 2020? Please raise your hand. Okay. So that's right, it actually increased to 0.5%. And I have to give credit to those that disagreed. If you look at 2018 to 2019, you'll notice a very big difference. That was a 4% growth. But if you look at 2019 to 2020, there isn't much, and it's just 0.5%. So that kind of goes back to what we're saying about COVID-19 and its effects. So this is the percent change in sales tax revenue for the year 2018 to 2019. You'll notice on the graph that there are some states that do not have numbers, and the reason to that is those states do not impose sales tax. You will also notice that the highest is New Mexico at 27.6%, and then Louisiana is the lowest at -6.27%. And this shows the percent change in sales tax from 2019 to 2020. Similar to the other graph, you will notice that there are some states that do not have numbers, which means they do not impose sales tax. And you'll notice that the highest is Idaho at 8.96%, and the lowest is DC at -23.42%. So this is the top 10 states with the highest percent change from 2019 to 2020. You notice that the top two is Idaho and Utah, and the reason to that is because of the population growth that was occurring during that time period. And this is the top 10 states with the lowest percent change from 2019 to 2020. DC is the first, followed by Alaska, and there are a few reasons to this. First, oil producing states such as Alaska and North Dakota faced a decline in oil prices during the early months of 2020. And vacation spots such as Florida and Hawaii, due to the whole COVID thing, people were not traveling, their sales tax also decreased in 2020. Finally, the correlation between the stringency index and the percent change in sales tax revenue. First of all, what is stringency index? So stringency index is a measure of strictness of COVID lockdown policies using 9 indicators. And a few of those indicators are workplace closure, school closure, and travel bans. And using the Corel formula on Excel, the correlation between the stringency index and the percent change in sales tax revenue was -3.24%, which 2.24 correlation, which means that first of all they move in inverse relationship. So whenever the percent change in sales tax goes up, the correlation, the stringency index goes down. However, for it to be a strong relationship between the two variables, it has to be at least 0.60. And here it's just 0.24, which indicates that there's a very weak relationship between the two variables. So we can't really conclude that they have a strong relationship. So in conclusion, the sales tax revenue increased on a consistent basis. However, the percent of growth decreased from the year 2019 to 2020. The top gainer in 2019 to 2020 was Idaho, and the top loser was DC. And then there was a negative correlation between the stringency index and the percent change in sales tax revenue. And there's a weak relationship between those two variables, indicating that there isn't much of a strong relationship between those two. Thank you. Any questions? Yes.
I thought you did a great job on this. Being in the Center for Economic Development, we took a look at the same thing on the micro. That's why I answered yes, because I studied this too. On a micro level in the state, and what was interesting, and I think how this research shows like the importance of like a pandemic and what people fear going into it, and then what actually happens is that the sales tax, I mean, I think we were all fearing that it was just going to tank, the world would just dissolve. I mean, you know, it's like Y2K all over again. But what happened and what you showed was that sales tax did raise, but like where you showed the cities that fell was lodging tax plummeted. And so you had a weird thing where your rural counties that don't have hotels did great during the pandemic, and your urban counties actually kind of didn't fare as well as they normally do. So I thought that did a good job.
Thank you.
So not so much a question, but I found it interesting.
Thank you.
More questions for our speaker? No? All right, let's thank our speaker one more time. Our next presentation will start at 8:45, so we have 2 minutes.